Intelligent Buildings is the only company focused solely on smart building advisory and managed services at scale for both new projects and existing portfolios. We can guide your smart building planning and execution for new construction, as well as assess your buildings globally for vulnerabilities and opportunities. We can then continuously monitor, manage, and remediate the inherent risks from contractors and control systems. Since 2004, we are the most trusted and experienced name in smart building services.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Realcomm Live. Today's conversation is going to be a fun one. It's a conversation that has come in and out of our world literally for the last 25 years. And it's a technology that when you see it and you hear us talk about it today, you're going to say, this makes so much sense, given a number of circumstances. But why hasn't it been more widely adopted everywhere? And my word, as you know, if you follow along, I try to describe the episode in one word or a phrase. And today's phrase is three-dimensional. And what we're going to be talking about today is immersive technology. In other words, being in two places at one time. And for those of you who are old enough to have watched Star Trek, you remember the teleportation where they'd be teleported from one location to the other. And if you remember some of the early days of Cisco, with their teleportation technology, their centers. They experimented with glass walls where speakers would walk across stages. And as a matter of fact, we experimented with this technology 23 years ago in 2001 at our conference in Dallas on our general session stage. We teleported somebody from London, England, and it was amazing to hear the gasps of the general session. They didn't know what they were seeing. I was on the other podium, and actually this person who was teleported in looked more natural, more real, and more live than I did. And so here we are 23 years later, and we're going to see how far this conversation has come. And it's going to be exciting to see some of the applications people are using it for. And lastly, what the implications are to building owners who are trying to figure out post-pandemic, where PS, we all learned to be at different places and work in a more virtual world, what this means for buildings and the modern workplace or the modern mall. And so before we bring on Andrew Dorcas, who's a Senior Vice President in Sales and Strategy for ARHT, we're going to show you a quick 2-minute video to give you a visual of what this technology is all about. And we're going to dive right into the conversation.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Je suis très heureux de pouvoir être, malgré l'éloignement, parmi vous.
Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a time of super opportunities. Perhaps it's unusual for presidents or heads of government to use a hologram to address people.
Yo, Jamal, what's up, man?
Capsule was a natural fit. I envision the ARHT capsule being used here in multiple ways. We can have students collaborate on projects across the world.
Pretty cool. Got to admit, pretty cool. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing? I haven't seen that video in a little bit. It was nice to see some of those programs again.
Yeah, I mean, the one that, I mean, they all capture my imagination. We're going to talk about it, but the one that captured my imagination the most was, can you imagine at a trade show, if you just convinced your CEO to work in front of a green screen, when he's back at corporate, and you're on the front lines of the trade show asking questions to, the prospects walking down, and then you got somebody who's real serious and they say, you want to talk to my CEO, and then he's busy back at corporate doing what he needs to do or she needs to do. And all of a sudden they're having a conversation, right? And it's like, it's a no-brainer.
That's what we do every day, Jim.
Yep. All right. So before we get started, I always like to offer the audience some context. So before we even get into the company, what is your journey? How did you get here today? What led you to ARHT? And I mean, was there connections? Has this been a career ambition?
Yeah. 20 years of age, university student. No, I didn't sit there and think I got to land myself a job at 52 years of age in the hologram business. But thankfully I am. Now, my background has always been in tech. Started early. Some of the great brands I've had the chance to work for, Samsung, Sony, prior to that, and predominantly in the display space. So funny enough, 2018, when I had the opportunity to join ARHT, and been there now 6 years, it feels like I'm right back at home.
Interesting timing, 2018, 2019, and then the pandemic. The world got a master class in video conferencing.
It sure did. Yeah. And we're using it here again today. It's definitely a big part of our day-to-day lives is being in one place and appearing in another. We just happen to do it in a different way.
Well, and just as plant a seed, I got some questions for you later on, but to plant a seed, I mean, everybody, while they're not watching this episode, is sitting in major offices around the country, if not the world, trying to figure out how to repurpose all of this space that's becoming available because either, people aren't coming back to the office or they're not coming back full time. I mean, we have a serious occupancy and utilization in office going on. And so these kinds of ideas, whether we have them totally figured out or not, they're at least breadcrumbs to the answer, right? And you don't figure it out unless you try and experiment. And that's what this conversation is going to be all about. So
great.
How about a little about the company, ARHT?
10 years now. 2014, the company was doing some R&D at the time, found that they had the ability to do low latency, high quality video with an encrypted stream, and that's where the hologram was born. Guys like Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Gary Vee were on the speaker circuit and appearing at events all over the world, but the travel has its wear and tear on us, as we know. Yep. And we were able to work with them early on and be able to beam them there as a hologram, interacting live with audiences and moderators and panel discussions, etc. We've been doing that ever since.
It's Tony Robbins specifically. I mean, whatever is coming out of his mouth and he's saying is obviously why people are there. But did the audience feel as connected to him as a hologram? Did you ever get any feedback on that?
Here's the answer that I had when I got that. His revenue on site when he appeared as a hologram and his follow-up bookings for online programs and DVD sales, etc., at that point in time were not impacted one bit. If anything, I believe, and we see it all the time when we do events, the phones come up and the photos are taken and the memories are stored as a result of the cool factor of that appearing as a hologram instead of in person. I know in my case, I get more people taking a photo of me when I appear as a hologram than they ever did if I appeared in real life.
Yeah, I get it. Well, and it was interesting to see Zelensky. I mean, think about what his day looks like and his safety or capacity to travel. I thought, for this rough and tumble guy in Ukraine to be taking advantage of some of the most sophisticated technology out there, that says a lot.
Yeah, and that was part of his approach. He was wanting to work with the global leaders on the hashtag Rebuild Ukraine program, and it was Founders Forum actually out of the UK that led the charge on that. I think there were about 4 other tech conferences that jumped on board. And we beamed him from the Ukraine, which our technology was already in the country prior to the war. And we were able to beam him simultaneously to multiple sites all over Europe.
Wow. Wow. So obviously, and we're going to get into it again in a second, all the different applications. I mean, this thing could be used in a variety of different ways. What's the fundamental mission of ARHT? I mean, why do you wake up every morning? What is the overall goal?
Yeah, our goal is to give organizations that are probably watching this the opportunity to reduce travel and wear and tear on their employees without compromise, without having to just appear as a talking head, if you will. Be there as a hologram, all of you. Your body language, which, as we know, more than 50% of communication is nonverbal, but allow that to be in one or multiple sites simultaneously. And there's a lot of organizations that are grasping this concept and starting to really integrate it into their day-to-day.
Yeah, well, and we're going to talk about that cool factor a little bit, because you think about, again, going back to these offices that are, or even retail for that matter, that are looking to, modernize their experience and kind of feel more 21st century. I mean, I go into an awful lot of buildings with what I do, and most of them still are reminiscent of the old day, right? I mean, and something like this in the lobby. I mean, I love marble. I love water features, when I walk into a beautiful skyscraper, but I also want to see a little bit of modernization and a little forward thinking as it relates to technology. And I will tell you that 98% of the buildings I go into don't have anything. And something like this in the lobby, bringing in a celebrity every day or every week, for coffee, and you could use that video on over. It doesn't even have to be live, right? I mean, it can be a video broadcast.
Yeah, our focus is interactive holograms. When we use the term hologram, a lot of people will think of different things, but no, our focus is interactive holograms. And our technology, our most recent product, the ARHT capsule, is essentially the ability to do live beams, but also interactive because it has touch. And with our technology, which is in the cloud, with our content management system, et cetera, we can store all of that pre-recorded, pre-produced content in the cloud. Clients can do that, and they can push that and schedule it. So you think of things like malls and displays where you've got content like an advertiser, for example, that could easily be integrated, but much more robust and eye-catching than a standard
two-dimensional. Yeah. Now, we really didn't discuss this, but I just thought about it. Those very innovative, forward-thinking celebrities, where I imagine a lot of this technology starts, have any of them literally put green screen studios in their homes, right? Because they're doing this so much that they really have taken it to another level and are prepared to do it on a moment's notice?
Yeah, the green screen is actually quite common. The pandemic brought us that, if anything. Organizations, many of our clients have got studios, multiple studios, if you will. Was talking yesterday to one of our national defense partners, and they've got offices all across the country. All of them have studios in them. So it's celebrities, sure, but companies everywhere have all of this equipment ready to go. You add a ARHT Engine computer, which is how our magic happens, to those studios, and you're hologram ready.
Yep. So as I mentioned earlier, we teleported somebody, not quite your technology, to our general session stage in 2001, so 23 years ago. How has the technology changed in that quarter century?
Well, it's faster, it's more stable. The video streams, we're beaming 4K video now at 25 megabits per second. It's consistent. They have the ability to add visual effects to it as well, so it's not just you, and it's full body. It can be multicast, so you can be in multiple places. Imagine training programs for organizations where you're in one, but you can train audiences in a dozen different locations all at the exact same time.
You just said something that is so true. And, you think of 7.5 billion people, technology that we're seeing with AI that's just like extraordinary, mind-blowing, and something as simple as creating video conferencing experience at scale, meaning I don't want to see Jim in a little window on my computer. If Jim was on the wall at his true height, right, representing his true body scale, the experience grows 10x. And yet I go into some of the biggest retailers in the country. I look for this stuff. And there I am on a little screen, watching, the model walk across with the new shoes. And I'm like, they don't seem to understand the scale size of this. I mean, I'm just talking in general, but you do, obviously. I mean, why is that so important to you?
Well, it's actually it's been a problem for quite some time. The keynote speakers. I was asked at a conference Wednesday how many. It was an event planners meeting and conference, and I said, show me the hands of how many executives or keynote speakers can't get to your conferences. And 3/4 of the room went up, and it's just we are a busy world today. But these technologies are great to be able to conference like this amongst our teams. But when you've got those meetings or presentations that really matter, we can do better. And we have a solution with the like of our technology that allows you to be there as a hologram, interacting live.
So being in the conference business and taking risk like we do, I will tell you for a fact, people on the back end and the front end, the AV teams, as well as the executives, are petrified.
Yeah,
are petrified to try this stuff because standing in front of a green screen might feel odd. The technology at the front end, will the camera work? And do I have somebody who can do it? And then even some of the most sophisticated AV teams that I've worked with, they anytime you want to push the envelope a little bit, it's like, okay, we'll do it, but it's another 100,000, know? And I think we need more people leaning in and willing to take risks.
Yeah.
I've been to some conferences literally look like they were, planned or being run in 1980.
Oh, it's happening. I can tell you, we recently won the business of Encore globally, which is probably the largest AV company in the world. They put us head to head, and ultimately our performance and product is now showing up in conference centers and hotels all around the world. And so we're in the midst of a pilot program right now. We've got the feedback is that it is incredibly impactful. One of the biggest use cases is concierge. And when you take a look at concierge services today, typically you're getting about 70 to 80% of those questions are repeat questions. Well, we're creating AI concierge personas for our clients, and that they are essentially able to be produced in very short time.
Again, we are right there with you. 2004, I believe, 3 or 4. It was in San Francisco. We had a woman by the name of Virtual Anna. She was a virtual concierge at the Westin Hotel in San Jose, where she worked 60 minutes down the road and came into that lobby virtually to answer questions. We brought her to our conference as a virtual concierge. So that's 21 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it is what I've learned in my career is even these brilliant big ideas, it just takes time for people to grab on. So before we go to break, what is the most innovative example application you've seen in your travels of your technology?
Yeah, it depends on how you consider innovation. I'm incredibly proud. We're going to announce this on Tuesday, but we have worked with a university for the last few years, and they have just rolled out multiple campuses where they're going to have 5 capsules and 8 studios all connected for education. And so the learning and development focus is extending those great minds that can't be in all of those locations to each of those campuses. And believe it or not, this is just the research phase of it, but it's about to explode, I think, in terms of learning and development.
Wow. So it's making its way out of the celebrity realm and starting to make its way into business and education. That's awesome. That's great. And again, what's driving this? You said it, travel beats people up. It's expensive. It's got carbon involved with it.
Yeah.
Instead of spending 8 hours to get to a place to deliver a 30-minute speech, you can do it in 45 with 15 minutes prep. I mean, there are absolutely times that we all need to be together. And I would never suggest we live in this virtual world because I wouldn't want to live in that world. I want to be around people. But there are circumstances, maybe 10% of them, where this kind of technology makes 1,000% sense. All right, we're going to take a brief break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the impacts to the hybrid office experience and what this means for office owners who are looking to fill those buildings and come back with a modern office experience. We'll be right back.
Within the real estate industry, there is an increasing emphasis on energy efficiency, sustainability, and tenant well-being. There is no choice but to adopt smart building technologies today. However, the current setup in many buildings presents a challenge for operators. Building systems such as HVAC, lighting, and security each have their own networks. So gathering data from these systems feels like solving a complex puzzle. It's time-consuming and often overwhelming. But what if all building OT systems and devices can connect to an integrated network while ensuring secure access to the data? With the Andorix in-building converged network, data flows to your building operation system in real time. Air quality, lighting, security, and fire systems, and more. Highly secure, fully integrated. Learn more at andorix.com.
All right. So we touched upon it a little bit earlier. Digital transformation has been taking place for 30 years. The advent of mobile workers, laptops in airports, 20 years. Yeah, whether office owners realized it or not, the workplace was shifting. Those salesmen, those consultants, they were in the office a little bit. There are absolutely roles and positions that need to be in the office all the time. We've seen accounting teams totally go remote, right? Because they're crunching numbers all day and they confer. So there's a lot of challenges between the analog and the digital as to how work is done, right? And so we've got these buildings, they're experiencing some challenges with occupancy. What role does your technology play in the flexible, hybrid, immersive, modern office, modern workplace?
Yeah, back to some of the comments I had earlier, I believe, being able to be there for those big sales presentations, and whether it's a leader, and they can't be in all of those regional offices at the times that based on the limitations of time, they could be there. Training is a big one where you could ultimately, bring that one trainer, that expert, that subject matter expert to multiple sites simultaneously, and allow that use case. We've got one client of ours, and they've got a meeting space, and they've set up a green screen studio in this meeting space because it wasn't being used anymore. And they're beaming their heads of product out to conferences from that meeting space. And they have road shows constantly. Well, they're not traveling these very busy people all the time to all of these conferences. They just couldn't be there. So the choice isn't, be there or don't be there in person. They can't be there in person. Now they're able to be there as a hologram and convey that knowledge.
Well, we've been trying to promote the idea. So that's talking about office or conferences a little bit, but going back to the office side of it, I mean, if you just think, why did we go to offices in the 80s? Well, because that's where the expensive photocopier was. Why do we go to, offices in the 90s? I mean, there was always a reason, and it meant that there was more collaborative capability. Beautiful conference rooms. You wanted to impress your clients to have them come into the meeting with a nice view. I'm not saying you don't still do that stuff, because you do, but why wouldn't you augment that with some kind of Disney, and I don't want to say Disney experience, in an amusement park kind of way, but play around with these technologies and see how they can enhance your workplace. I've seen zero experimentation, and not zero. I've seen very little experimentation, in a meaningful way. There might be in a lab someplace, but deploying it to 5 or 10 offices, getting the feedback, I haven't seen too much of it. Are you seeing in the flex hybrid office world, are you seeing people play around?
Well, we did, WeWork unfortunately is having some challenges, but we did do a pilot program with WeWork internationally where we had that shared workspace, and we built our studios in there and our displays into their locations all across North America, Canada, Europe, Asia. And ultimately, we found that the adoption of the technology to communicate between site to site was quite high. What we also found, however, wasn't just from a WeWork to a WeWork. It was from a WeWork to a corporate office, so that you could bring those remote workers in to those locations. And our product is designed more so as a presentation product than a collaboration or a meeting style. It is to bring those great people to those meetings, to those trainings, to those learning moments, where they, doing it like a talking head isn't as impactful as it could be. And so that's really where organizations are really stepping up.
Right. Well, and that makes sense. But also, I believe, on the collaboration side,
Mhm.
sitting in a room at a desk, with your peers, life size, right across from you,
Mhm.
not in little boxes, with no latency and perfect audio visual, high resolution. It can be like being in two places in one time,
Yeah,
and
or 4 or 10.
or 10. So what advice, insight would you offer to somebody in our industry, the build industry, who's, looking to update their malls, their office buildings, their mixed use projects, their multifamily? What do you say to them, as far as, how your technology can enhance what goes on inside their buildings?
Well, definitely. One of the biggest adoptions we're seeing right now is experience centers, demo centers, lobby displays, et cetera, where the technology is essentially interactive. Remember, it can go between live and content on demand, if you will, with a concierge or a kiosk of information. You could have messages on ESG and or leadership or earnings, et cetera, that are available in your lobby. You could have product overview videos that are created and hosted by the engineering team as an interactive kiosk that's part of your experience centers. We're seeing this more and more. And then from time to time, maybe it is needed for training. Well, you just wheel it down the hall, and next thing you know, you've got your head of this or your head of that talking about things and being there as a hologram for those employee trainings.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about the trade show, bringing your CEO along to the trade show. Most CEOs don't sit in booths, of major conferences, but ultimately there will be that one or two prospects that walk by that are ready and able and needing to talk to the CEO. And yeah, sure, you could bring them up in a Teams or a Zoom call. But how great would the impact be if they said, yeah, why don't you come on over here? Let me get you a cup of coffee. Let me go get my CEO, and boom, there he or she is. And the conversation feels like, first of all, as a customer, you're saying these guys are pretty forward thinking,
Mhm.
right? And if they're forward thinking on the front end, that must mean the company as a whole is forward thinking.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this, and this is an Encore global initiative where they're placing the art capsule inside of convention centers. And I'm in Toronto, so I'll speak to one that's just down the street from me. But the Metro Toronto Convention Center is a massive convention center. The art capsule is literally placed right at the escalator leading up to the exhibit floors. And they are offering this as a service. If that CEO isn't going to be there, well, now they're there as a hologram, welcoming the conference goers and thanking them.
Yeah, can you imagine you're coming up the escalator and he's live or
Yeah,
she's live and saying, "Hey, how are you? Nice to have you. Please see us at our booth." I mean, so he can't take 24 hours to travel, but taking an hour while everybody's coming into the conference,
right.
phenomenal use of time.
Yeah, and it's very personalized. The CEOs are hard to get. They're busy, and he or she is not able to be there and say thank you or welcome them or talk about a new initiative that is coming out. Integrate a QR code into it. Now you're measuring analytics and finding out who's interested in that message, and that can all be done on the screen.
Absolutely. Well, hats off. So glad to see this idea from long ago is continuing its development. It's getting more and more sophisticated. Excited. I know we're talking to you about some stuff at the conference to have some fun. And I just want to say thank you for your time and all the great work you guys are doing.
Oh, thanks, Jim. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Have a great day. Have a
You
great
too.
Bye-bye. All right. I mean, we look for innovation everywhere, under every rock, and to see something like this, which is forward-facing, tenant-facing, client-facing, customer-facing. All the back-end stuff is important, but it's this front-end stuff that creates more engaging environments that is really exciting. So before we close out the show, let's hear from our final sponsor, and I'll be right back.
Teams working in silos can't deliver high-performance results like healthy indoor air quality or zero energy because team members set goals independently, which leads to delays, wasted money, and missed targets. With Oros 360 technology, we define common objectives from the start, predict building performance before construction, using digital simulation and modeling to deliver the highest performance at the lowest possible cost. and you get proof that your building achieved the outcomes you paid for. Contact Oros Group today to take the first step.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you to our guest today. Phenomenal job, Andrew, in communicating a great new technology or evolving technology. Thank you to our sponsors for help and support, and thanks to our team for putting on a great session today. So next week, we're still in the final throes of confirming our speaker, but it's a topic, again, a big one, very dear and near to my heart. And that's the status of prop tech investing. It started in 2009, right after the financial collapse, where an inordinate amount of money began flowing into the market for investing, whether it's either at the venture capital or the private equity or private banking. A lot of money came into the system, and it went into prop tech, it went into fintech, med tech, ed tech, all sorts of vertical markets, as well as general technologies. And we're seeing it again at this moment with AI. But over the last 15 years, 2009 to 2024, 15 years, we've seen a lot of money, but we're not really sure we've seen the proportionate amount of results. In other words, what technologies have come out of the last 15 years? And more importantly, where are we today? And there's been a little pullback in the prop tech investment marketplace in the last 2 to 3 years. So we're gonna talk about where is the market today, how's it performing, and what can we expect from prop tech investing in the next 24 to 36 months. Won't want to miss that one. It's going to be a great conversation, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Be well.